Hello and welcome to Nutrition News with Sandra, your RDN, where every week I have the pleasure of dishing out your weekly dose of nutrition and wellness news for your mind, your body, and your soul. And I hope that you had a wonderful weekend. Hope you had a wonderful resurrection weekend. And I hope that you're having a wonderful day so far. And thank you for tuning in live. I'm excited to go live today. I have some exciting stuff today regarding an upcoming challenge. So get ready, stay tuned in May. And so for those who tune in live, thank you for taking time out. Hopefully you're having some lunch so you can refuel for the second half of your day. And those who are listening to the replay, thank you for pausing and taking time out to listen to the replay. And remember, this information spills over to your family and your friends as well. And so those who know me, I like to poll my audience and I like to respond to my audience in real time. And so let me get my windows together and let me make sure that I'm able to see your comments as they come through. So just give me 1 second to check on that. Let's see here. And if I'm not able to see your comments, so some I will be able to see and some I will not, I will comment at a later time. So don't worry, I will get to your comments. And so we are talking about stress eating, why it happens, what do we need to do to make it stop? And so this has been a mini series where we want to learn how to eat mindful. And what does that really mean? And specific strategies that will help us to avoid overeating out of stress, anxiety, boredom, and ultimately avoiding the unwanted weight gain. And so we're going to talk about the key question that you should ask yourself before and after you eat. What is that? And so just a little background. So kids are very great at knowing when to eat, how much to eat, and they will stop when they're full. They will eat when they're hungry and they will stop when they're full. And this happens no matter if it's their favorite food or not. If they're full, they're gonna throw it away, right? They're gonna throw it on the floor. And so in adults, we lose touch of that sensation. A lot of times because we introduce dieting, we allow life to kind of get in the way. We don't eat regularly. We kind of push it off. And before we know it, it's been several hours since we have eaten. So post yes, if your body signals you when you're hungry before you are like starving. Okay, well, I like to call it hangry. Usually when we're adults, we have ignored it for so long. Our body cues are kind of off. And so therefore we are like ravished by the time that we finally eat. So put a yes if you can relate to that. And so has your weight loss stalled or has it plateaued? And so today I'm going to talk about the 3 overlooked keys to reignite your body's signals for hunger and for fullness, and that will help you to kickstart your weight loss and to get it right back into gear. And so you're not alone. So grab a pen, grab some paper, let's take some notes, and you're going to hear about a tool that will help you to tune more into your body's hunger and fullness cues. All right. And so for those who do not know who I am, I'm Sandra Goldtree. I am a woman of faith who is blessed to serve as a registered dietitian, nutritionist, certified personal trainer, and your accountability partner. And I teach adults the necessary tools and techniques to break those weight plateaus, to break the dieting mindset, and to move towards a healthier relationship with food so that you can effectively control food cravings, as well as no matter what life has presented you with. Okay. Now the term is life is life. And so we don't want life to life so much to where we lose ourselves. Okay. And so the goal is to build habits that last for life, okay? And it takes time. It's a marathon. It's not a race, okay? And so it's all about creating a lifestyle of self-care, and it's all about breaking those food strongholds. We want to get food off the pedestal. We don't want to fear any food, okay? So as you're chiming in, I see people chiming in, introduce yourself, let me know that you're on, and just let me know where you're tuning in from, all right? And so real quick, I mentioned about a challenge. So I'm excited to present my summertime shape up challenge, which is going to start in May. We're getting ready. We're ramping up for summertime. And so this is a heads up where this is an opportunity for you to ditch restrictive diets and temporary fixes such as intermittent fasting, every form of keto you can think of. Ozempic is a new thing out. Metformin, unfortunately, is another thing that's been coming out. Shots, all that stuff. So many people still want to do things the natural way, the holistic way. Allow your body to do what God designed it to do. And so that's what food is about. Food is medicine. And so if you're curious, you're not able to stay on, you can take a sneak peek at actionchoices.com/summer shape up. Okay. That is actionchoices with an S.com /summer shape up. And I'm going to give more details about the challenge. All right. All right. So as a way to break the ice and to get things going, what is your preference on the weekdays? So Monday through Friday, what is your preference? Do you cook, restaurants, takeout? Okay. And if it's a combination, then post that. But what are you most consistent with? Okay. Usually we lean one way more heavy than another way. So post that. Okay. So do you still primarily eat at home? Are you dining out at restaurants? Are you doing takeout? So where do you fall in that game? All right. And so for those tuning in, we've been talking about stress and stress eating. What do we need to do to stop it, and why does it even happen in the first place? And so specifically today, we're talking about the key question to ask yourself before and after you eat. All right. So let's jump right on in. Hopefully I've given you enough time to get some pen and paper. I have some good stuff to share with you today. And so earlier I mentioned about how kids are great at knowing when they're ready to eat, when they're full, no matter if it's their favorite food or not. Okay. And what happens when you try to feed a baby when they're full? They turn their heads, they throw the food on the floor, they throw a fit, right? They don't want it anymore. And so kids have a natural way of tuning into their hunger and fullness cues. And so we're going to dig deeper in that because we used to have it too, and we can get it back. Okay. We've allowed life and us kind of putting food and the importance of food on the back burner because we're trying to deal with work or we're trying to deal with other things. Okay. So let's talk about that. So let's talk about these three things. Okay. Number one, I don't have an appetite. So this is very common. I hear this a lot where people just say, when I wake up in the morning, I just don't feel like eating. I'm not hungry. Well, there's a reason for that. Okay. You should feel munchy. You should feel ready to eat. So not having an appetite is a primary reason hunger cues get thrown off in our bodies. Okay. And so the ability to feel hunger and fullness is a quality that all of us were born with. Okay. And like I said, babies and little kids, they don't need any direction on how much milk to have, how much food to have, when to stop eating. They will stop when they're satisfied. Okay. And then, they will simply just become disinterested and they'll stop eating. Okay. Nobody needs to tell them to stop eating. But as we mature, this ability becomes blunted because we learn to ignore it. Okay. And sometimes it's confused with thirst, or altogether we just forget. Okay. Sometimes hunger is really thirst. Okay. So that's another issue of being dehydrated. Then when you throw in the dieting factor, okay, and every forms of it, any form of restriction, any form of going long periods of time without eating is a form of dieting. And that really throws your body signals off. So in a nutshell, our metabolism goes to sleep or in hibernation, nothing to do with age, nothing to do with gender, for my ladies, nothing to do with premenopausal, postmenopausal, menopausal, none of that stuff, okay? It has to do with how we're taking care of our body or not taking care of our body when it comes to food and in our frequency of eating. And so even less to do, like I said, with that pre and postmenopausal hormonal changes that we all go through. And so luckily we can train ourselves to tune back into our abilities to feel that hunger and fullness cues. Hence, we can wake up our metabolism. All right. So let me share a little bit of my philosophy. I believe that there are two phases to succeed in building lifestyle habits that lead to successful weight loss, keeping it off, and even for health promotion. I'm really big on health promotion, but if we already have the diagnosis, then we manage it. Okay. And so we have the foundational phase and we have the mindfulness phase. Okay. And none of these have anything to do with dieting. And so all forms of dieting is code for some level of deprivation, no matter how you slice or dice it. Even if you lose the weight, which most people will lose weight, unless their body has completely stopped responding. However, will it stay off? The diet is not successful if you haven't learned how to keep it off. If you haven't learned how to eat, if you haven't learned how to really fuel your body. Really, when we diet, we just learn how to restrict. Okay. So no matter what the circumstances in life are, you are still able to manage it. And you also have the tools to tweak it as based on what's going on in your life. So the foundational phase is what I first talked about, was what I call nutrition 101. Okay. And this is learning terms, vocabulary, things that we don't typically think about when we're dealing with nutrition. I like to say you don't know what we don't know, because a lot of people read, a lot of people hear stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have the tools and the necessary what's necessary for success. So in all honesty, like I said, we don't know what we don't know. And there's always something to learn. There's always some dots that need to get connected that we didn't realize. Even I had to do the same thing. And so we always have to keep in mind when it comes to fueling our bodies, it's more than just food. There's a lot of things that come in mind. And so the mindfulness phase promotes giving yourself permission to eat and enjoy the foods that you actually like. So typically with diets, there's a lot of things that you're told you can't eat, you shouldn't eat for periods of time. We comply for a while, right? And then eventually we kind of rebound, right? And we go on a binge. So throwing away the ideal of a forbidden food list and the foods that you avoid, we got to get rid of that. That's that dieting mindset. This gives you back the power when you realize, yes, you can have it. Yes, you can have it. Okay. You want to stay in control, but the understanding is, well, how does it fit? And if you're eating well-rounded already, then having that fun food, what I like to call it, is not going to have a big impact, and you're not going to overdo it because you're not going to feel like you're missing out on stuff. So having an evidence-based foundation plus the art of mindfulness not only empowers you, but it also promotes change that lasts for life. This is how you're able to do it long term. No matter what's going on in your life, you are able to manage it. You're able to make the adjustments, okay? And it is very achievable. And so one tool on the mindfulness side is what I'm going to talk about today. It's called the hunger scale, okay? And which will help you to become more intentional about why. Why are you eating? Not just what you're eating, okay? All right? And so a different approach. I know, a different approach. And so can you relate to not having an appetite most of the day? So if you say yes, and that's the answer for many people, they just don't feel hungry. Especially when you wake up in the morning, But the old cliche is true. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It doesn't have to be this big spread, but something other than just coffee. Coffee alone is not breakfast. I'm sorry, coffee drinkers. You can still have your coffee, but just have some food with your coffee, okay? And so it simply means that your metabolism is sleeping, okay? Your body needs the fuel from food, and it's not just to nourish enough. And we want to make sure we nourish our body enough so that you actually get through the day, okay? So that's what we're talking about. So now let's talk more about this hunger scale, okay? So let's go into details about this hunger scale. So imagine a range from 1 to 10, okay? 1 is being nearly empty, like your energy levels are low, you're feeling lightheaded, you're feeling dizzy, productivity is down, you're at work, you can't focus. For some people, they may feel shaky, mood swings, things like that, okay? So that's, we don't want to go there, okay? 10, so now let's go on the opposite side of that. 10 being Thanksgiving dinner type full, like you have overdone it. You asking yourself, why did you eat so much? And you want to just take a nap. You want to go to sleep, okay? So we don't want that either. So while everybody has their own definitions, physical experiences and symptoms of what hunger and fullness looks like, I'm going to provide you a reference point so that you can begin to determine where you fall on the hunger scale before and after you eat a meal or a snack, okay? All right, so a poll question, all right? So do you find yourself hitting those two extremes that I just talked about? 1, you're starving, you're lightheaded, you're not feeling very well. Or 10, you're stuffed, you want to go to sleep, you overdid it, okay? All right, so just simply post yes if you can relate to that, or I do if you can relate to that. All right, and so before I get into the scale itself, let me talk a little bit about the challenge, okay? And so remember, I'm really excited about this challenge, okay? It's my mid-year challenge. It's going to start on May 6th. And it's really, are you ready to get your tank tops out, your swimsuit, your shorts, and things like that? If your answer is no, you're not alone, but you still have time. Are you tired of tweaking your intermittent fasting window? Are you tired of trying the different keto versions? Some people feel like they have to shop at certain places in order to eat healthy. They feel like they have to shop at Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or things like that. And it's just You don't have to. Okay, so it's time for a change. That is my challenge to you, especially if you've been trying for 3 months or longer without any real results. Okay, and if this sounds like you, join the millions of other people. And so get ready. Here's your chance to become the best version of yourself. So mark your calendars for May 6th. I'm kicking off my annual Summer Shape Up Challenge, and it's called Summer Shape Up 3-day free clean eating with informative nutrition topics, and it's also going to include some powerhouse breakfast smoothies. So we're at that time of the year when smoothies kind of get back hot and on demand because the weather is changing and they're easy and we're always on the go. So I'm going to kick it off on May 6th, and registration is open. And during those 3 days, you will have 3 days of meals and easy to prepare snacks as well as meals. You will have 3 days of filling powerhouse breakfast smoothies. And I say powerhouse because I believe that smoothies should come in the form of a meal, okay? Not just protein powder and water or just fruit and water. We want to make sure that they're meals that they last you for up to 4 hours, okay? So you want to start your day out strong. So that's why I call them powerhouse breakfast smoothies. And then we're going to have 3 days of informative nutrition topics that I will deliver. And you will also have the ability to get some coaching as well as your questions answered, your burning questions answered. Here's your opportunity for that. 3 days of accountability, support, and hand-holding. So it's really a lot of fun, okay? And I'm there with you. I'm doing it with you. You're going to come out of this challenge like many others have come out, feeling energized, having less cravings, feeling better overall because you're going to feel less bloated. You're going to feel less heavy. You're going to have a revved up metabolism. That process is going to start. People lose weight as well. So it's amazing what can happen in the body in just 3 days. So again, this is your chance to come out of this being the best version of yourself possible in just 3 days. So registration is open. Hot off the press, invite your friends, invite your family, because challenges are always more fun when you have a buddy. So you're going to have a complete guidebook once you register that will have all of the meals, all of the recipes, all of the instructions, everything that you need. And then I am also going to provide some additional information to help you get started. Okay. So let's take this thing home. Let's go into number 3, where we're going to talk about where should you fall on this hunger scale, okay? And these are the questions you should ask yourself before and after you eat. And so remember, we want to avoid 1. We want to avoid 1 that's starving, that's lightheaded, that's weak. We want to avoid 10, which is stuffed and nauseous, okay? And so what we want to do is, it's important to keep in mind that the hunger range between 3 and 7, okay, hunger at between 3 and 7, to avoid feeling those unpleasant feelings, to avoid being out of control of your food choices. Because once we get too hungry, we're going to eat whatever is available. We're not going to want to eat, vegetables and something baked and something, healthy. You're going to want to eat something that's fried and greasy and salty and things like that. So you want to avoid that. And so when you're around 3, that's when you're starting to feel hungry. And typically we ignore that sign. Like, let me finish what I'm doing. And then 4 hours later, we still haven't eaten. So we don't want to ignore that. That is like the first sign of, like, your first call that you need to have something to eat. So don't ignore that. Okay. That means wrap up what you're doing so you can have that snack or have that meal. Okay. And then when we push to 5, we're neutral. We're more neutral. We're comfortable. We're more or less, we're satisfied. Okay. We could eat a little bit more, but we're satisfied. Okay. At neutral. And then 6 is around satisfied. That's like perfectly comfortable. Okay. And that takes time to learn that for your body. So you kind of have to go over to realize, oh, I went too far, or, so you have to really play around with that. And then 7 is you're satisfied. You're a little uncomfortable. So you're a little uncomfortable, but yet you have not overdone it. So that's kind of the range that you want to think about. So as soon as you hear those, as soon as those cues wake up, there's a process for waking the cues up. So, and that's where dietitians come in. That's where I focus on with my clients. You have to get your body back on that rhythm in order to tell you. Okay. So it's not that it can't tell you. It has nothing to do with age. You're not over the hill when you turn 40. So it was just a matter of, you have to eat enough and know how to eat in order to get your body back to say, oh, let me tell him or her that I'm hungry. And then you have to comply. Okay. So you have to comply. You can't ignore it, because then you'll just revert right back. Your body will revert back. And so, so before you eat a meal, do you find yourself more on the empty side, which is 1, that lightheaded, you can't even concentrate, you're feeling weak all the time, okay? Or you're starving, you're irritable, okay? So are you more on that end? And that's a lot of people, okay? And usually by the time we get that far, all bets are off. It's really hard to be in control. It's hard to lose weight. It's hard to manage anything when we're out of control that way. So we want to avoid getting hungry, okay? And this is the first step to begin working on. And so this Summer Shape Up Challenge will help you to hit the ground running with that. That'll get you 3 good days of eating, because everything will be laid out for you. You just choose your times, but the meals and snacks are all laid out for you. So during the challenge, you will begin to experience what that 5, that neutral feeling feels like, okay? To be satisfied, but no, you're going to eat again soon. It's not your last meal, okay? And so a few hours later, you'll begin to experience, that level 3. You're starting to feel that onset. So for some people, it's about day 3 when they experience that. Depends on, how much their metabolism has been kind of in hibernation mode. But stay the course, and it will happen. And this will begin to happen for different people at different stages, okay? All righty. And so the big takeaway message here is we talked about how kids are great at knowing when they're hungry and full. As adults, we lose touch of those sensations. And so we talked about typically we don't have an appetite. Especially when we wake up in the morning, or people say they don't have an appetite to the afternoon, that's because you trained your body to do that. Not because your body doesn't need it, not because your body's not craving it. Your body has just adapted. Your body's in starvation, sleep mode, because it's not getting what it needs. And it does hinder your weight loss efforts. And it is frustrating. It is very, very frustrating. And so as adults, we learn to ignore those signs of hunger and fullness, which slows our metabolism down. So this is but we can wake them up. That's the beauty of it. We can wake it up. So it has nothing to do with age or hormonal imbalances and things like that. It's a matter of knowing what the pieces that we need to put back together of the puzzle in order to allow your body to talk to you. So remember, I shared the 2 phases to succeed in building lifestyle habits that lead to successful weight loss, keeping it off, health promotion, preventing it altogether, management, if we do already have the diagnosis, and the phase 1 was foundational, and phase 2 was the mindfulness. So listen to the replay if you need to get more details on that. But the grand finale was the hunger scale, ranges to avoid and ranges that you want to stay within. Okay. So again, here is the URL for the Summer Shape Up Challenge, which is actionchoices.com/Summer Shape Up. Remember, we are kicking things off in a couple of weeks. And again, it's 3 days of clean eating. And we're going to talk about what clean eating is. It does not mean deprivation. You're going to have informative nutrition topics that help support what we're doing in the challenge. And also that's information that you carry forth with you beyond the challenge. Okay. You're going to have these meals and snacks, easy to prepare, a prep guide to help guide you to know when to prep stuff, when to cook stuff, especially if you're not kitchen savvy. So this is a good way to get a good glimpse of what prepping and planning can do for you and how it can make your life so much easier, especially when the unexpected happens. And again, you're going to have 3 days of informative nutrition topics that I'm going to talk about, support from myself as well as the other challengers, a lot of hand holding, powerhouse breakfast smoothies. Okay. You're going to have some awesome recipes for some smoothies that you can use whenever you wish. Okay. And so June is around the corner. So this is a great way to hit the reset button. And it's not too late to achieve your weight loss goals at all, okay? So this concludes what I have for this week's dose of your nutrition and mind and wellness news. I'm Sandra, your RDN, and I appreciate your time. And we are going to continue next week with what is normal eating, okay? What is normal eating? 3 myth busters that will help you to make normal eating very simple and achievable, and it will help you on your weight loss journey. So thank you for tuning in. Be blessed and have a wonderful rest of your day.